My plant peoples, we are in September, yo. The summer is wrapping up, and you would think that there's not many plants that you could be growing right now, but that's definitely not the case, because in this video, I'm going to share with you all the stuff that I'm growing right now and a lot of the seeds that I'm going to be sowing throughout September, because there's a lot of plants, so let's go. What's going on, my plant peoples? I am the ADHD gardener, where I use gardening, houseplants, and humor as a form of mental health therapy. And I'm a little bummed that summer's over. Once summer goes away, the depression tends to creep up a little more and more, but not this time, because we're going to be growing all throughout fall time and winter. So stick around for the upcoming videos, because all winter is going to be all about hydroponics. But for now, in the fall time, I got a lot of seeds to start sowing. I did start a lot of seeds yesterday and the day before that, which is why we're going to be going over them right now. But I also started them a few weeks ago, so you'll see them in their seedling stage. I was going to give you 5 plants, but I'm growing way more than 5. So I'm going to lump them into categories. 5 different categories of all the different type of plants that you can grow this September. So the first plant category, I guess you want to call it, is radishes and beets. Now, radishes have a quick turnover. They can grow within 30 to 45 days, depending on the variety. So you can really make it all the way through fall time, harvesting some radishes. I don't really like beets, but this is my first time growing them because I gotta, expand my knowledge. So I figured now would be the time to grow these beets because, and you know what? I have the seedlings already, and it's still warm enough so you can start germinating these seeds right now in the ground. Beets and radishes do not like to be germinated somewhere else. They like to be direct sown into the ground. So you could just go directly into your garden bed or your container and just put them directly in the soil with no problems. We still have the warmth from the sun, and we're still getting a decent amount of sun time. I'm not a beets fan, but I tell you, if you mix it and you make it with juice, then it's all good. So that's why I want to experiment with some beets this year. But why not? Now's the time to grow them. I keep saying now's the time to grow them, but it is now the time. Before we keep going, I want to let you know that I'm on other social media platforms. You can catch me on Facebook and Instagram, also the ADHDgardener.com. And last but not least, I am on Patreon, so we can just chill over there together. Okay, back to the video. All these plants that I'm going to be giving you ideally will do better throughout the fall and even wintertime if you have a hoop house, a greenhouse, or some sort of covering where you can kind of keep the warmth inside of the, inside of the area of the plant. Wow, the sun is beaming in my eye right now. Woo! Plant category number 2 I want to say is peas. Snow peas, sugar snap peas, regular peas, all kind of peas is the best time to be growing them right now. They start so relatively easy. It's still warm out, so we can still be growing them. These type of peas love this type of weather, and especially as they start to mature, it gets into the little colder time, so they like that also. When I hear loud cars like that, it reminds me of being back in the city. Really does. Oh man, how I don't miss that. Now, aside from all these different type of peas, you can actually try to start growing beans. Beans can be a little tricky part when you're trying to sow them right now, depending on how you're eating them or the type of variety. You want to find those type of beans that are short growing. They grow fast, they maybe grow smaller, so they're easier to harvest and they take, less time to grow. And now in different cultures, you can actually eat the beans with the pods and everything. You don't have to have a matured, pea pod to actually harvest them. Now my grandma, when she's harvesting beans, she harvests them in all different type of stages for all different types of things. Let's just say she wants to make a pot of rice, she wants to throw some beans in there. She'll grab a lot of the beans that still have not matured on the pod. That means the pod itself is not fibrous-y, it's still more of a tender state, and she'll throw them right in the rice. So it doesn't have to grow to full maturity, but that's still an experimental depending on the beans. I'm experimenting right now, but I don't know. But that one, you never know about that one. So I'm just gonna say plant category number 3 is all things leafy greens. Yes, I know that Swiss chard right there is in its an adult state, but I did just sow recently, yesterday, a bunch of seeds. I also have in another stage of seedling stage, I have a bunch of those as well. And growing a little strong, all right? Oh, it started small, but it's growing. Also, I'm growing a bunch of spinach. Now, I have a bunch of seedlings, but you can still put them in the ground right now. I wanted to see how many spinach plants I can get first before I start putting in a bunch of more seeds. But now's the time to do it. I told you this category is large. I'm growing 2 different varieties of bok choy. Aside from that, I'm actually growing some mustard greens, some other Asian greens, anything really leafy green. Now's the time to really grow any of that because a lot of those varieties will really grow. Also, I forgot to mention, Kale. I got tons of kale. I actually got 3 different varieties of kale. I got a dazzling blue, I have the dinosaur kale, I also have curly kale, and I think I'm growing one other variety. I forgot to mention that I'm growing lettuce too. So I told you that category is really, really large. Any kind of leafy greens is really, now is the time to grow them because they will grow so well. And also in the future videos when I start dabbling into hydroponics, I'm gonna be growing all these leafy greens throughout the winter time, so stay tuned for all of that. Chippy! My lovely Chip, he always hanging out with me. Always hanging out with me. You're gonna be seeing a lot of Chip on my Patreon because he's always chilling with me and he really makes the gardening experience a lot more fun and maybe a little annoying at times. Plant category, because remember, every category has multiple plants. This category is parsnips and carrots. Parsnips and carrots love to be touched by the cold, so now is the time to grow them because as they mature, they'll start growing into the colder weather. The best part about growing parsnips and carrots, now I have a bunch of them started right here, but also yesterday, I sowed a bunch more parsnips and carrots right in the same bed because I have a bunch of like empty spots. See that right there? I just sowed them yesterday and that would be on September 5th. Now I have the warm weather to get them started and germinated. See, a bunch of seedlings already started sprouting up. Unfortunately, they're really close together, so I will be thinning them later on. But for now, hey, they're started growing. You can actually grow carrots and parsnips through the beginning of wintertime, if you have a hoop house and all that, because they really love the cold weather. They actually get sweeter as it gets touched by the frost. Isn't that cool? So you can grow them now and just harvest them through the late fall and wintertime. Look at the little baby seedling that I planted this at least maybe a week ago. I even have them growing in storage bins. Now, if it got too cold, I could always just cover this with no problem. Also, stay tuned for an upcoming video on parsnips. I'm going to show you guys how to germinate them 2 different ways. And Freddy, my rooster, just grow some parsnips and carrots, man. Before this rooster starts crowing again, get your seeds started. Plant category number 5 is the broccoli, cauliflower, cabbage, and Brussels sprouts. Now this one is a little on the iffier side because starting in those seeds right now, I don't know how viable they're going to be unless you have a hoop house or a greenhouse or some sort of protective plastic covering over them. They also love to grow in cool weather, so technically maybe it would work out. I'm still experimenting right now, and now I do have right here, I think this is a broccoli or Brussels sprout. I really don't know, to be honest, not sure. I started this one months ago. Now I do have other seedlings that I don't know if they're really going to mature at this time. I should have started them a month earlier and let them grow up to size. I have a few cabbages, actually a bunch of cabbages. They're all scattered throughout the garden. The only problem is, like I mentioned before, is that I don't know how long it's going to take for them to mature. It does take a long time. These cabbages are inside of my greenhouse, so I'm going to be able to hold on to a lot of heat, hopefully. So maybe they will mature in time. I'm not sure. This is why this is an experiment, because I'm not sure how long it would take them to grow, especially if you have a greenhouse or if you don't have a greenhouse. I don't know. Now I did grow these seedlings about a month ago, at least maybe a month and a half. I must have started them in early July. The problem was they were all eaten by cabbage moths, so I had to restart them all over again. So I have a bunch of seedlings that are still relatively small. I do not know if they're going to be able to mature in time, but if you did start them in time, maybe a month and a half ago, then you should be good to go. If you're growing your braassicas and it doesn't work out, that's okay. You can still eat the leaves of it, so it's not like just like a no harm, no foul kind of thing. I really hope you enjoyed this video and you got some good information out of it. Just because summer is wrapping up, that does not mean that the gardening is over. Gardening is never over, I tell you. If you did enjoy this video and you want to show me some love, then don't forget to smash that like button. I really appreciate it. Also, if you haven't already, then consider subscribing. I drop a video twice a week, one short, one long. Also, you can catch me on other social media platforms. I'm on Facebook and Instagram, theadhdgardener.com, and also I'm on Patreon, so hit me up and look me up there. As usual, until the next episode, you guys, where you and me both are going to be growing our happiness one plant at a time, one day at a time. I'll check you on the next episode. Peace and love.